The dust swirled across the prairie like a golden veil as Zadie Armstrong clutched her mother's locket and peered nervously out the stagecoach window. The year was 1878, and she was leaving behind everything she'd ever known in Boston to start a new life in the untamed frontier of Wyoming Territory. "First time out west, miss," the elderly gentleman across from her smiled kindly, his weathered face a roadmap of years spent under the harsh frontier sun. "Is it that obvious?" Zadie smoothed her emerald traveling dress, now wrinkled from the 2-day journey. At 22, she had never ventured beyond Massachusetts until now. Most Easterners look either terrified or enchanted. "You seem to be vacillating between the two," he chuckled. Zadie returned his smile. "My father was a doctor in Boston. After he passed last winter, I received an offer to teach at a schoolhouse in Sweetwater. It seemed providential. The truth was more complicated. Her father's medical practice had left her with debts she couldn't pay, and the teaching position had been her salvation, a chance to escape the creditors and the pitying glances of Boston society. The locket contained the only photograph she had of her parents together, taken before her mother succumbed to influenza when Zadie was just 8 years old. "Brave decision for a young lady alone," the old man remarked, tipping his hat respectfully. The conversation died as the stagecoach suddenly lurched forward with alarming speed. Zadie grabbed the leather strap beside her window as the other passengers exchanged worried glances. "Something's wrong," muttered a businessman across from her, peering out the window. "We're going too fast." A woman beside him gasped. "The driver, I can't see him anymore." Panic spread through the cabin as the stagecoach careened wildly around a bend, throwing Zadie against the door. The businessman lunged for the roof hatch, pushing it open. "The driver's gone." He shouted over the thundering of hooves. "Must have been thrown." The stagecoach bounced violently as it left the rutted trail, heading straight toward a steep embankment. Zadie's heart hammered against her ribs as the vehicle tilted precariously. "Jump," the businessman yelled, "before we go over." The elderly gentleman grabbed the woman next to him, forcing the door open on the safer side of the coach. They tumbled out together, followed by the businessman. Zadie reached for the door handle, but a violent lurch sent her sprawling across the seat. The stagecoach tipped further, and her door suddenly flew open. With a scream, Zadie tumbled out, her skirts billowing around her as she plummeted toward the hard-packed earth. The world spun in a blur of sky and dust. She braced for the impact that would surely break her bones or worse. Instead, she felt strong arms encircle her, a body absorbing the shock of her fall. They rolled together in the dirt, her rescuer taking the brunt of the impact. When they finally came to a stop, Zadie found herself lying atop a broad chest, staring into the most startlingly blue eyes she'd ever seen. Dust swirled around them as the stagecoach continued its wild journey down the hill, finally crashing with the splintering sound of wood and the frightened whinnies of horses. "Are you hurt, madam?" The man's voice was deep, with a slight drawl that identified him immediately as a Westerner. Zadie struggled to catch her breath. I don't think so." He sat up, still cradling her protectively, and Zadie became acutely aware of several things at once. He was young, perhaps 26, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that fell across his forehead in an unruly lock. His shirt was open at the collar, revealing tanned skin and a silver chain. Most curiously, he wore no boots. His feet were bare and dusty. "Samuel Odell," he introduced himself, helping her to stand. "Most folks call me Sam, Zadie Armstrong." She brushed dirt from her traveling dress, wincing as she discovered a tear in the expensive fabric. "I cannot thank you enough, Mr. Odell. You quite literally saved my life." Sam glanced toward the wrecked stagecoach. "Let's check on the others." He kept his hand at the small of her back as they made their way down the embankment. Zadie noticed he limped slightly, favoring his left foot. "You're injured," she said, stopping, "and you've no boots." "How did you?" "Was washing up in the creek when I heard the coach," Sam explained, gesturing to a small stream about 50 yards away. Didn't have time to grab my boots. Zadie's eyes widened. You ran barefoot across this terrain to save strangers. A slight blush colored his tanned cheeks. Anyone would have done the same. I very much doubt that, Mr. Odell. They reached the overturned stagecoach where the other passengers were assessing the damage. Miraculously, no one was seriously hurt. The horses, still hitched to the broken coach, were skittish but unharmed. Driver must have been thrown back a ways, Sam said, examining the front of the coach. I'll ride back and look for him. I'll go with you, Zadie offered, surprising herself. Sam assessed her torn dress and city shoes. It's rough country, Miss Armstrong. I assure you I'm tougher than I appear, she lifted her chin defiantly. And I have medical training from my father. If the driver is injured, I may be able to help. Something in Sam's expression shifted respect, perhaps, and he nodded once. Very well, let me free one of these horses. As Sam worked to detach one of the stagecoach horses from its harness, the elderly gentleman approached Zadie. Young woman, Sweetwater is still 15 miles northeast, he said. The rest of us will wait with the coach for help, but if you continue on with this young man, you might reach town before nightfall. Is that wise? Zadie asked, suddenly uncertain. The old man's eyes twinkled. That boy just ran barefoot over rocky ground and caught you midair. I reckon if there's anyone in this territory you can trust, it's him. Sam returned leading a chestnut mare, found these in the coach. He handed Zadie a carpet bag. Your belongings, I presume. Yes, thank you. It was her only bag. Everything she owned in the world was in that modest case. Sam helped Zadie onto the horse before swinging up behind her. The closeness of him made her breath catch in Boston. Such proximity would have been scandalous. But this wasn't Boston, and Sam Odell had already saved her life once today. They rode first to the creek where Sam had been washing. He quickly pulled on socks and boots while Zadie averted her eyes, her cheeks warm. As they followed the stagecoach trail backward, Zadie became aware of the vastness of the landscape. Rolling plains stretched toward distant mountains, the sky an endless blue canvas above. It's beautiful, she murmured. Different from Boston, I imagine, Sam replied. How did you know I'm from Boston? Your accent, and those shoes weren't made for western dust. Zadie laughed softly. I'm beginning to realize that much of what I brought is unsuitable for life here. They rode in comfortable silence for a while before Sam spoke again. What brings you to Wyoming Territory, Miss Armstrong? I'm to be the new schoolteacher in Sweetwater. Is that so? We've been waiting on a teacher since Miss Holloway married the blacksmith last spring. I ranch just outside town. My sister's kids will be in your class. Before Zadie could respond, Sam reined the horse to a stop. There. He pointed to a still form on the ground about 20 yards off the trail. They dismounted, and Zadie followed Sam to where the stagecoach driver lay motionless. One look told her what Sam surely already knew: the man's neck was bent at an impossible angle, his eyes open and unseeing. He didn't suffer, Sam said quietly, removing his hat. Zadie crossed herself, a habit from her Catholic upbringing. What happened to the coach? Why was it running wild? Sam examined the ground around the body. Tracks here suggest riders approached the coach. Could have been a robbery attempt gone wrong. A chill ran down Zadie's spine. Bandits. Out here in daylight. These hills have gotten dangerous lately. Gang called the Blackwater Boys has been hitting coaches, trains. Folks around here are on edge. Sam gently closed the dead driver's eyes and covered him with his own jacket. We can't bury him properly now, but I'll send men back for him. We should reach town before dark. As they remounted, Zadie was acutely aware of the weight of Sam's arms around her as he held the reins. Despite the tragedy they'd just witnessed, she felt safe with him in a way that defied logic. Tell me about Sweetwater, she said as they rode, partly to distract herself from their grim discovery. Small but growing. Got a general store, saloon, church, hotel. The school's new community built it last year. Folks are mostly ranchers, miners from the copper mine north of town, and a few merchants. And what of your ranch, Circle O? Nothing fancy, 200 head of cattle, decent grazing land. My pa started it 15 years ago. It's mine now since he passed 3 winters back. I'm sorry about your father. Thank you, it was consumption that took him. After a pause, he added, your pa was a doctor, you said. Yes, he believed in teaching me his trade, even though it wasn't considered proper for a lady. I assisted him with patients for years. Useful skills out here, nearest doctors in Laramie, 2 days' ride. As they crested a hill, Zadie caught her first glimpse of Sweetwater, a cluster of buildings nestled in a valley with a creek winding alongside it. The setting sun bathed everything in golden light. It's lovely, she breathed. Sam smiled. Wait till you see it up close. It ain't Boston, but it's home. The town seemed to materialize slowly as they approached first outlying cabins, then the main street with its wooden boardwalks and hitching posts. People stopped to watch as they rode in, curious about the newcomer sharing a horse with Sam Odell. Samuel Odell, finally bringing a lady to town, called a portly man sweeping the boardwalk outside the general store. Sam ignored the good-natured ribbing, guiding the horse toward a 2-story building with Sweetwater Hotel painted across its facade. He dismounted first, then reached up to help Zadie down. His hands lingered at her waist a moment longer than necessary, and their eyes met briefly. Thank you again, Zadie said softly, for everything. Just doing what needed doing. Sam handed her the carpet bag. Miss Armstrong here is our new schoolteacher, he announced to the small crowd that had gathered. Stagecoach had an accident about 10 miles back. Driver didn't make it. Murmurs rippled through the onlookers. Blackwater boys, someone asked. Possibly, Sam replied grimly. I'll get a party together to recover the coach and the driver's body at first light. A tall woman with silver-streaked dark hair stepped forward. Miss Armstrong, I'm Martha Jenkins, head of the school board. We've been expecting you. You must be exhausted from your ordeal. A bit shaken, Zadie admitted. Let's get you settled at the hotel. School doesn't start for another week, so you'll have time to recover and prepare. As Martha led her toward the hotel entrance, Zadie glanced back at Sam. He stood watching her, hat in hand, the sunset gilding his features. Something passed between them, an unspoken connection born of shared danger and rescue. Mr. Odell seems a good man, Zadie remarked to Martha as they entered the hotel. One of the best in the territory, Martha confirmed. Took over his father's ranch at 22, raised his sister's children after she died in childbirth. Never complains, works harder than 2 men, and would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. Zadie thought of how he'd run barefoot across rocky terrain to save strangers. Yes, I believe he would. The hotel room was simple but clean: a narrow bed, washstand, chair, and small window overlooking the main street. After Martha left, promising to return in the morning, Zadie unpacked her few belongings. The events of the day washed over her in waves, and she sank onto the bed, suddenly overwhelmed. She had nearly died today. Had it not been for Sam Odell's quick thinking and selfless bravery, she might be lying broken at the bottom of that ravine instead of safely ensconced in this frontier hotel room. Tears threatened, but Zadie blinked them back. She hadn't come west to be a wilting flower. A knock at her door startled her from her thoughts. Miss Armstrong, Sam's deep voice came through the wood. Brought you some supper from the hotel kitchen. Figured you might not feel like coming down. Zadie smoothed her hair and opened the door. Sam stood holding a tray with a covered plate, a cup of steaming coffee, and a small vase containing a single wildflower. That's very thoughtful, she said, stepping back to let him enter. Sam placed the tray on the small table by the window. Nothing fancy, just some stew and biscuits. It smells wonderful. In truth, Zadie hadn't realized how hungry she was until that moment. Will you join me? There seems to be plenty. Sam hesitated. Wouldn't be proper, me being in your room after dark. After saving my life today, I think we've moved beyond such conventions, don't you? Besides, the door will remain open. A small smile tugged at his lips. You're not much like the other Eastern ladies who have passed through Sweetwater." "I'll take that as a compliment, Mr. Odell." Sam stayed, perching on the edge of the chair while Zadie sat on the bed. They shared the meal, and Zadie found herself telling him about her life in Boston, her father's medical practice, their modest home, the financial troubles after his death. "So coming west wasn't just about adventure," Sam observed. "No," Zadie admitted. "It was necessity disguised as opportunity." "And you, have you always lived in Wyoming, born in Missouri?" "Pa brought us out after the war. He fought for the Union, wasn't welcome back home in border country. Ma died on the journey. It was just Pa, me, and my sister Laurel until she passed. And now you're raising her children." "Three of them. Michael's 12, Emma's 10, and little Sarah's 6. They're fortunate to have you." Sam looked down at his coffee cup. "Do my best, not always sure it's enough. From what I've seen, your best is extraordinary." Zadie's voice was soft but earnest. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with something neither was ready to name. Sam cleared his throat and stood. "I should go. Got to organize that rescue party for first light." He moved to the door, then paused. "School board's hosting a welcome supper for you Saturday night at the church. Would you allow me to escort you?" Zadie felt warmth bloom in her chest. "I would be honored, Mr. Odell." "Sam," he corrected gently. "If we're moving beyond conventions." "Sam," she echoed, "and I'm Zadie." He smiled, a full, genuine smile that transformed his rugged features. "Good night, Zadie. Welcome to Sweetwater." After he left, Zadie stood at the window watching his tall figure move down the street toward the livery stable. She touched the wildflower he'd brought, a simple purple bloom that somehow seemed more precious than all the hothouse roses of Boston. The next week passed in a flurry of activity. Zadie was introduced to the schoolhouse, a simple but sturdy building with rows of wooden desks, a pot-bellied stove, and shelves of well-worn books. The townspeople welcomed her warmly, bringing small gifts of preserves, baked goods, and hand-sewn items for her new quarters behind the schoolhouse. She saw Sam only in passing, a nod across the street, a tip of his hat as he rode through town. He'd recovered the stagecoach and given the driver a proper burial. The other passengers had been safely transported to their destinations. No sign of the supposed bandits had been found, but people remained wary. On Saturday evening, a knock at her door announced Sam's arrival. He stood on her porch in clean denims, a pressed white shirt, and a dark vest. His hair was neatly combed, and he held his hat in his hands. "Evening, Zadie," he greeted her, his eyes appreciative as they took in her blue dress, one of the few nice garments she'd brought from Boston. "You look very handsome, Sam," she replied, accepting his arm. The church was transformed with lanterns and flowers, tables laden with food prepared by the women of Sweetwater. Zadie was introduced to dozens of people, including Sam's nieces and nephew, who regarded their new teacher with a mixture of curiosity and excitement. "Aunt Martha says you fell out of a coach and Uncle Sam caught you like in a storybook," 10-year-old Emma said, wide-eyed. Sam cleared his throat. "Emma, that's not quite, is it true?" Little Sarah interrupted, bouncing on her toes. "Did he rescue you?" Zadie smiled, kneeling to the child's level. "He did. Your uncle is very brave." "He's the bravest," Michael asserted proudly. "Pa says there's nobody better in a tight spot than Uncle Sam." Sam's neck reddened above his collar. "That's enough now. Go get some of Mrs. Wilson's apple pie before it's gone." As the children scampered off, Zadie turned to Sam. "Their father lives nearby, my sister's husband, Tom Jenkins, Martha's son, good man, works the mine. He kept the kids while they were babies, but when Sarah turned 3, he asked if they could live at the ranch. Said they needed a woman's influence, but truth is, mine work is dangerous. He wanted them somewhere safe if anything happened to him. So you became mother and father to them." Sam shrugged. Their family. The evening progressed pleasantly with good food and conversation. After the meal, someone produced a fiddle and the center of the church was cleared for dancing. Sam hesitated, then extended his hand. "Would you care to dance, Miss Armstrong?" Zadie placed her hand in his. I would indeed, Mr. Odell. The fiddle struck up a lively reel, but Sam led her in a more sedate waltz, his hand warm at her waist, his movements surprisingly graceful for a man who spent his days on horseback and working cattle. You dance well, Zadie remarked. Ma taught me before she passed, said a gentleman should know how to waltz, even on the frontier. She was right. As they moved around the floor, Zadie noticed Martha Jenkins watching them with an approving smile. In fact, many of the townspeople seemed pleased to see them together. I think we're causing a stir, she whispered. Sam glanced around. Folks have been trying to match me up with every unattached woman in 3 counties for years. They're probably already planning our wedding. The comment hung between them, neither awkward nor unwelcome. Zadie felt a flutter in her stomach at the thought. And how do you feel about that? She asked boldly. Sam's blue eyes held hers. I think they might be onto something for once. The following week saw Zadie settling into her role as Sweetwater's schoolteacher. She had 15 students ranging from 6 to 16, including Sam's nieces and nephew. The work was challenging but rewarding, especially when she saw the children's faces light up with understanding. Sam began appearing regularly at the schoolhouse, first with practical gifts like firewood and a rocking chair for her quarters, then with invitations to Sunday dinner at the ranch. Zadie found herself looking forward to these visits, to the chance to see him outside the confines of the town's watchful eyes. The Circle O Ranch was modest by Wyoming standards, a sturdy main house, barn, bunkhouse for the 2 hired hands, corral, and outbuildings. The children clearly adored their uncle, and Zadie watched with growing affection as Sam patiently answered Michael's questions, listened to Emma's stories, and carried Sarah on his shoulders. One Sunday afternoon in late September, while the children helped Martha with the dishes, Sam invited Zadie for a ride to see his favorite spot on the property. If you're not too tired, he added. Teaching 15 youngsters must wear on you. I'd love to, Zadie replied. The children are spirited but eager to learn. Sam saddled a gentle mare for Zadie and his own stallion. They rode across rolling grassland toward a stand of cottonwoods in the distance. The afternoon sun was warm, but the first hints of autumn crispness tinged the air. Michael's arithmetic is improving, Zadie commented as they rode. He worked through those fractions problems without a single mistake yesterday. Sam nodded. He mentioned you stayed after school to help him. Thank you for that. It's my job. You go beyond what's required. The children adore you. The whole town does. They reached the cottonwoods, which surrounded a small, clear pond fed by a spring. Dismounting, they let the horses drink while they sat on a fallen log. I've been meaning to tell you, Sam said. There's been talk of the Blackwater boys again. Stage was hit near Laramie last week. Concern clouded Zadie's expression. Were people hurt? Driver was shot, but he'll recover. Passengers were robbed, but unharmed. Sam hesitated. I'm worried about you riding that school circuit to the outlying farms. Maybe you should stick to town for a while. Zadie had begun visiting the children who lived too far away to attend school daily, bringing books and assignments once a week. Those children need education too, Sam. I know, just don't go alone. Take Michael with you at least. She recognized the concern in his voice and nodded. All right. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by birdsong and the gentle lapping of water. Zadie found herself studying Sam's profile, the strong line of his jaw, the slight crinkles at the corners of his eyes. What? He asked, catching her gaze. I was just thinking how different my life would be if you hadn't been washing at that creek when my stagecoach went wild. Fate, maybe, Sam suggested. Do you believe in fate? Wasn't raised to. Pa was practical, believed a man makes his own way. Sam picked up a flat stone and skipped it across the pond's surface. But sometimes things happen that make you wonder, like a Boston lady falling right into my arms. Zadie smiled. I like to think it was more than chance. Sam turned to face her fully, his expression serious. Zadie, I'm not a man of fancy words, but these past weeks, having you here, It's brought something to Sweetwater, to the ranch, to my life that I didn't know was missing. Her heart quickened. And what is that? Light, he said simply. You brought light. Impulsively, Zadie reached for his hand. His fingers were calloused strong, but they closed around hers with infinite gentleness. May I call on you properly? Sam asked. Not just as the schoolteacher, but as a woman I'm courting. Yes, Zadie replied without hesitation. I would like that very much. The ride back to the ranch was filled with a new awareness between them. Nothing had really changed, yet everything had shifted. As they neared the house, however, they spotted a rider approaching at a gallop. That's Tom, Sam said, frowning. Something's wrong. They spurred their horses forward, meeting Tom Jenkins halfway. Bandits hit the mine peril wagon, Tom gasped, his face streaked with dust. 3 men dead, including the mine owner. They're saying it was the Blackwater boys. When? Sam demanded. This morning. Sheriffs forming a posse. They were headed south toward the territorial line. Sam's expression hardened. Take Miss Armstrong back to the house. Tell Martha what's happened. You're joining the posse? Zadie asked, alarmed. Got to. Those were our neighbors killed today. Be careful, Sam. His eyes softened momentarily. Always am. He spurred his horse toward town without looking back. The next 3 days were the longest of Zadie's life. She taught school, trying to maintain normalcy for the children, but her thoughts constantly strayed to Sam and the dangers he might be facing. Reports trickled in the posse had tracked the bandits into the mountains. There had been a shootout. Men were wounded on both sides. On the evening of the 3rd day, Zadie was grading papers in her quarters when a knock sounded at her door. She opened it to find Sam standing there, unshaven, exhausted, with a bandage wrapped around his left arm. Sam, she pulled him inside. You're hurt. It's nothing. Bullet grazed me. His voice was gruff with fatigue. Just wanted you to know I'm back. Sit down before you fall down, Zadie ordered, guiding him to a chair. She poured him a cup of coffee from the pot on her stove. Did you catch them? Some. 2 dead, 3 captured. Their leader got away. Sam accepted the coffee gratefully. Sorry to come to you like this. Should have cleaned up first. Nonsense, I'm just glad you're alive. Zadie knelt beside his chair. Let me look at that arm. Sam started to protest, but Zadie was already unwrapping the crude bandage. The wound beneath was angry-looking but clean. Who dressed this? Did it myself. Zadie shook her head. Wait here. She gathered her medical supplies, another gift from her father's profession that she'd brought west, and properly cleaned and bandaged the wound. You'd have made a fine doctor, Sam remarked, watching her work. In another life, perhaps. Zadie tied off the bandage. There, much better. Sam caught her hand as she finished. I thought about you out there when things got bad. The raw honesty in his voice made her throat tighten. I prayed for you every hour. Zadie, he stopped, struggling with the words. When you're staring down gun barrels, you get real clear on what matters. And what matters, Sam Odell? He stood, pulling her gently to her feet. This, he said, and kissed her. It was a tender kiss, tentative at first, then deepening as Zadie responded. When they finally parted, both were breathless. I'm falling in love with you, Sam confessed. Probably have been since you tumbled out of that stagecoach. Zadie touched his face, feeling the stubble beneath her fingers. I think I've been falling too. It just took me a little longer to realize it. Fall turned to winter, and Sweetwater disappeared under blankets of snow. Sam courted Zadie properly, Sunday drives in his wagon, dinners with the children, chaperoned walks after church. The townspeople watched approvingly as their schoolteacher and rancher grew closer. Christmas brought a proposal, simple, heartfelt, delivered as they stood on the schoolhouse porch under a star-filled sky. Zadie accepted without reservation. Spring wedding, Sam suggested. When the wildflowers bloom again. Perfect, Zadie agreed. Though I have one condition. Sam raised an eyebrow. Name it. I want to continue teaching, at least until we have children of our own, he smiled. Wouldn't have it any other way. Sweetwater needs you as much as I do. In January, trouble returned. The Blackwater boys' leader, a man known only as McCabe, was reported in the area. The stagecoach routes were suspended temporarily, and townspeople traveled in groups for safety. Despite precautions, disaster struck in early February. Zadie was teaching the older students about geometry when Michael burst in from his lunch break, white-faced. "Miss Armstrong." "Riders coming, they've got guns." Zadie rushed to the window. 5 men on horseback were approaching the school, bandanas covering their faces. "Children into the storage room now," she ordered calmly. "Michael, take charge. No matter what you hear, stay hidden until Sheriff Miller or your Uncle Sam comes." "But Miss Armstrong, now, Michael." As the children filed into the small back room, Zadie retrieved the small revolver Sam had insisted she keep in her desk drawer. She'd never fired a gun before, but Sam had shown her how it worked. The door crashed open. A tall man in a dusty black coat entered, flanked by 2 others. Their eyes were cold above their bandanas. "Schoolmarm," the leader said, nodding toward her gun. "Put that down before someone gets hurt." "What do you want?" Zadie demanded, keeping the revolver steady despite her fear. "There's nothing of value here, information," the man replied. "We know Samuel Odell's been tracking us. Want to know what he knows?" Zadie's blood ran cold. These were the Blackwater boys, and they'd come for Sam through her. "I don't know anything about Mr. Odell's business," she said firmly. The leader pulled down his bandana, revealing a face bisected by a jagged scar. "You're his woman. Don't play dumb. I'm the schoolteacher. Now leave before the sheriff comes." The scarred man laughed. "Sheriff's busy with a distraction we arranged. As for Odell, he's off at the south pasture. Won't be riding to your rescue this time." One of the other men was rifling through papers on Zadie's desk. "Boss, look at this." He held up a letter with Sam's handwriting. "Maps of our last known locations." The leader snatched the paper, scanning it. Well, well. "Looks like Odell's closer than we thought." He turned to Zadie. "You're coming with us, schoolmarm. Odell's been a thorn in our side too long. Time to draw him out." "I will do no such thing," Zadie replied, her finger tightening on the trigger. The leader moved with unexpected speed, knocking the gun from her hand. "Wasn't asking." From the storage room came a small, frightened cry. The leader's head snapped toward the sound. "The children," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Even better." "Leave them alone." Zadie stepped between him and the storage room door. "They're innocent children. Then come quietly and they stay unharmed." Zadie knew she had no choice. "Very well." The men bound her wrists and led her outside to the waiting horses. As they rode away from Sweetwater, Zadie prayed the children would stay hidden until help arrived. Her only hope was that somehow Sam would find her. Sam was inspecting fence lines with his ranch hands when Michael's horse appeared on the horizon, the boy riding hard. "Uncle Sam." Michael shouted as he drew near, tears streaking his dusty face. "They took Miss Armstrong." Cold fear gripped Sam's heart. "Who did?" When, between sobs, Michael explained what had happened at the schoolhouse. "She made us hide, said not to come out till you or the sheriff came. But I snuck out the back window to get help." "Good boy," Sam said, though his mind was already racing ahead. "You did exactly right. Are the other children safe?" Michael nodded. "Emma's watching them." Sam turned to his ranch hands. "Jeb, ride to town. Tell the sheriff what's happened. Pete, get back to the house. Make sure the children are protected." He swung Michael up behind him on his horse. "You're with me. I need you to show me exactly where they went." By the time they reached the schoolhouse, other townsmen had gathered, including Sheriff Miller, who discovered the fire at the livery stable had been a diversion. 5 men, the sheriff confirmed after examining the tracks, heading south toward Bear Canyon. "McCabe," Sam said grimly. "He's using Zadie to draw me out." Sheriff Miller nodded. "Likely, man's got a grudge since you shot his brother." Sam turned to Michael. "Go to the ranch, tell Martha what's happened." "I want to help find Miss Armstrong," the boy protested. "You already have," Sam assured him. "Now I need you to look after your sisters." As Michael reluctantly rode toward home, Sam checked his pistols and rifle. 8 men, including Sam and the sheriff, prepared to follow the bandits' trail. "They've got a head start," Sheriff Miller warned, They'll head for Bear Canyon, Sam replied. It's defensible and they know I'll come for her. It could be a trap. I know it is. Sam's jaw set in a hard line, but they took the wrong woman if they wanted me to come alone. They rode hard, following tracks that made no attempt at concealment. McCabe wanted to be followed, wanted Sam to come after him. The knowledge made Sam's blood boil, but he forced himself to remain calm. Zadie needed him thinking clearly. As dusk approached, they reached the mouth of Bear Canyon, a narrow passage between steep rock walls that opened into a sheltered valley beyond. A perfect place for an ambush. We go in quiet, Sheriff Miller instructed. Split up, approach from different directions. The men dismounted, leaving their horses hidden among the trees. Sam moved stealthily along the canyon wall, every sense alert. In the gathering darkness, he caught the glow of a campfire deeper in the canyon. Creeping closer, he could make out figures around the fire. Zadie sat with her back against a boulder, hands bound before her. McCabe paced nearby, his scarred face partially illuminated by the flames. 3 other men lounged around the fire, rifles across their laps. Sam signaled to the sheriff, who was approaching from the opposite side. They needed to get closer, to be certain they could take down all the bandits without endangering Zadie. Suddenly, a horse nickered somewhere behind them. One of the bandits leapt to his feet. "Someone's out there," he shouted, raising his rifle. The canyon erupted in gunfire. Sam dove behind a rock as bullets whined past. Through the chaos, he caught glimpses of Zadie struggling to her feet. "Odell," McCabe's voice echoed off the canyon walls. "I know you're out there. Show yourself or the schoolmarm dies," Sam signaled to the sheriff, who nodded grimly. They had to act now. "McCabe," Sam called back. "Let her go. This is between you and me. Come out where I can see you." Unarmed, Sam stood slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I'm coming out. Don't hurt her." As Sam stepped into the firelight, McCabe grabbed Zadie, pressing a pistol to her temple. Despite her obvious fear, her eyes blazed with defiance. "Drop your gun belt," McCabe ordered. Sam complied, letting his weapons fall to the ground. "Now we settle this," McCabe snarled. "You killed my brother." "Your brother was robbing a stagecoach," Sam replied evenly. "He shot the driver, and you tracked him like an animal. Let Miss Armstrong go. She's got nothing to do with this." McCabe laughed harshly. "She's got everything to do with it. I've been watching you, Odell, watching how you look at her. Now you'll know what it feels like to lose someone you love." In the split second before McCabe could pull the trigger, Zadie drove her elbow hard into his stomach. The outlaw doubled over, his grip loosening just enough for her to twist away. Sam lunged forward as the sheriff and the other men opened fire from their hidden positions. McCabe recovered quickly, raising his gun toward Zadie. Without hesitation, Sam threw himself between them as the outlaw fired. Pain exploded in Sam's shoulder, but he managed to tackle McCabe to the ground. They grappled briefly before Sam delivered a knockout blow. The gunfire ceased as quickly as it had begun. 3 bandits lay dead, 1 wounded, and McCabe unconscious. "Sam." Zadie rushed to his side, her face pale with concern. "You're shot." "Just a scratch," he managed, though the burning in his shoulder suggested otherwise. Sheriff Miller secured the remaining outlaws while one of the townsmen cut Zadie's bonds. She immediately tore strips from her petticoat to staunch the bleeding from Sam's wound. "Reckless," she scolded, tears in her eyes, jumping in front of a bullet. Sam reached up to touch her face. "Couldn't let him hurt you." "And I couldn't bear to watch you die for me," she whispered fiercely. The ride back to Sweetwater was slow and uncomfortable, with Sam growing weaker from blood loss despite Zadie's best efforts. By the time they reached town, he was barely conscious. The next days passed in a haze of pain and fever. Sam drifted in and out of consciousness, always finding Zadie at his bedside when he opened his eyes. She rarely left, using all her medical knowledge to fight the infection that threatened to take him. "Stay with me," she would whisper when the fever burned brightest. "We have a spring wedding to plan, remember?" On the 3rd night, the fever broke. Sam awoke to find Zadie asleep in a chair beside his bed, her hand still clasping his. Moonlight streamed through the window, silvering her features. "Zadie," he whispered, her eyes fluttered open immediately. "Sam." "Thank God." She pressed a cool hand to his forehead. "The fever's broken." "How long?" "3 days." She poured him water, helping him drink. The bullet missed anything vital, but the infection was bad. McCabe in jail along with his surviving man. They'll stand trial in Cheyenne. Sam studied her face, the dark circles beneath her eyes, the weariness etched in every line. "You haven't left, have you? Only when Martha forced me to eat or change clothes." Zadie smiled tiredly. "The children have been worried sick about both of us. Both of us. Apparently, I've become part of the family without realizing it. Emma informed me quite seriously that since I'm to be their aunt, they have every right to worry." Sam laughed, then winced at the pain in his shoulder. "Smart girl. They get that from their uncle." Zadie's expression grew serious. "Don't ever scare me like that again, Samuel Odell. Can't promise never to get hurt," he replied honestly, "but I can promise to always come back to you." Recovery was slow but steady. By March, Sam was back on his feet, though not yet able to handle the heavier ranch work. Zadie had resumed teaching, but spent every evening at the Circle O, helping with his exercises and planning their May wedding. The schoolchildren were thoroughly invested in the romance, offering suggestions for everything from Zadie's dress to the wedding cake. Little Sarah was especially excited at the prospect of her teacher becoming her aunt. "Will you live at our house?" she asked one afternoon as Zadie was helping her practice reading. "Yes, sweetie, your uncle and I will live in the main house with all of you." Sarah beamed. "Good, Uncle Sam smiles more when you're around." On a warm evening in early April, Sam took Zadie for a ride to their special spot by the pond. The cottonwoods were budding, and the first wildflowers dotted the grassland. They sat on the same fallen log where he'd first spoken of courting her. "Hard to believe it's been almost a year since you fell from that stagecoach," Sam remarked, his arm around her shoulders. "Into the arms of a barefoot cowboy," Zadie added with a smile. "Not how I imagined starting my western adventure." "Regrets?" She turned to face him. "Not a single one. The danger, the hardship, I'd face it all again to be right here with you." Sam kissed her gently. "1 month until you're Mrs. Odell." "1 month," she agreed, "though I've felt like part of this family for much longer. You brought something special to Sweetwater, to the ranch." Sam took her hand, running his thumb across her engagement ring, a simple gold band with a small pearl. "Not just to me, but to everyone. And you gave me a home when I needed one most." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun began to set, painting the Wyoming sky in vivid oranges and purples. Zadie leaned her head against Sam's shoulder, feeling a profound contentment. "What do you think our life will be like 5 years from now?" she asked. Sam considered the question. "The ranch will be bigger. Maybe we'll have a child or 2 of our own to join the others. Michael will be nearly grown. He already talks of working the ranch full-time. And I'll still be teaching," Zadie added, "perhaps in a larger schoolhouse. Sweetwater's growing." "Whatever comes," Sam said, "we'll face it together." Their wedding day dawned clear and perfect. The entire town gathered at the white-painted church where they'd first danced together. Sam waited at the altar, more nervous than he'd been facing down McCabe's gang. When Zadie appeared at the church doors on Sheriff Miller's arm, standing in for her late father, a collective sigh rose from the congregation. She wore a simple white dress with lace at the collar and cuffs, her dark hair adorned with wildflowers. To Sam, she had never looked more beautiful. Their vows were straightforward and heartfelt, promising to stand by each other through whatever trials frontier life might bring. As they sealed their promise with a kiss, Zadie knew she had found far more in Wyoming Territory than she'd ever dreamed possible when she'd boarded that stagecoach in Boston. That evening, as they danced at their wedding celebration, Sam pulled her close and whispered, "I'm glad you fell from that runaway stage, Mrs. Odell." Zadie smiled up at her husband. and I'm eternally grateful for the barefoot cowboy who leapt to catch me." 5 years later, Zadie stood on the porch of the expanded Circle O Ranch house, watching Sam teaching their 3-year-old son to ride his first pony. Their infant daughter slept in a cradle beside her, while Sarah, now 11, sat nearby practicing her embroidery. Michael, at 17, had become Sam's right hand on the ranch. Emma was following in Zadie's footsteps, assisting with the younger children at the now larger Sweetwater School. The town had grown considerably, with a train station, hotel, and even a small hospital where Zadie volunteered her medical knowledge 2 days a week. The Blackwater boys were long gone, with McCabe serving a life sentence in the territorial prison. Life wasn't always easy. Droughts, harsh winters, and the occasional rustler still tested their resolve. But together, they had built something beautiful: a family, a home, a community. As Sam lifted their laughing son from the pony and carried him toward the house, Zadie's heart swelled with gratitude. That terrifying moment when she tumbled from the stagecoach had been the beginning of everything good in her life. Sam reached the porch, setting their son down to run to his mother. "How's my cowboy doing?" Zadie asked, ruffling the boy's dark hair. "Papa says I ride good as him." The child announced proudly. "Better," Sam corrected with a wink at Zadie. He leaned down to kiss her, still as tenderly as on that first night in her schoolhouse quarters. "Happy?" he asked softly. Zadie looked around at their home, their family, the life they'd built together on this wild, beautiful frontier. "Completely," she answered, and meant it with all her heart.